All right. So, as you all know, that we are planning a amazing new expedition to Angkor Wat and Vietnam next month, right? So what we are doing is I want to give you a quick story about the Vietnam-Cambodia story so that you get an understanding of why this is so important for us to understand, especially as Indians, because from both sides we've given them the culture that's emerged there, you know. And so I'll just show you. This is the original drawing that the French, the explorer, what was the name? Henry Mouhot. He gave this original drawing in the 1860s. So he gave this, it was discovered about 300 years ago, covered in jungle. They found this amazing city, right? Like right out of some mythology, like they thought it was Xanadu, they thought it was all kinds of things. And the French explorers, they discovered this city because it was a French territory for a long time. They discovered this city that had been lost. People didn't even know it existed. Even the locals told stories about not to go there because there were cobras and snakes and you shouldn't go there, you know. So they started digging and they found this vast city, Angkor Wat, which we now know as Angkor Wat. And so they discovered that there was an ancient kingdom there, right? That was the most advanced, that even more than, it was the largest temple complex in the world. You know, nobody had seen such a vast space before. So it was an incredible discovery. And to understand how this fits in, can I get up? Okay, all right. So to understand how this fits in, this is where we are, right? And at that time, let's say, turn of the century, 2nd century, 3rd century AD, right? The Guptas were in power here, and down here the Pallavas were in power in the south, right? In Tamil Nadu. And these Pallavas, along with sailors from the west coast, would sail across every monsoon. They'd sail across, and they would do business with what we call Indonesia, Thailand, all those countries now. Right? There was huge business activity going on. And what we find is that they would sail across and they gave the name to this place, Funan. And in India it was known as Suvarna Bhumi, right? Which is the place of the suns, right? So, you know, and they used to sail right across there. And this is Funan, which today is Thailand, Cambodia, and that is Vietnam, there. That one there, yeah? So they used to sail across and they would bring their culture, they would bring their ideas, they'd bring it, and they would stay with these people for 6 months and then sail back with the new winds of the monsoon again. So it wasn't a journey of just go, drop off goods and come back. They would go and they would bring all their Pallava culture, they would bring all their Hinduism, and Pallavas were not Shaivites like later Cholas were. They were Vaishnavas, they were Vishnu worshippers, right? So very interestingly, these were the kind, they actually got their shipping knowledge, a lot of the larger ships, from the Romans, because the Phoenicians and Romans would come around the coast and buy goods and services, so they'd come. And in fact, they say that most of the sailors that were floating then were of Arab origin. So they weren't like local Tamil sailors. These were imported experts from the Roman Empire who would come and carry these goods and big ships across, you know. Because the local sailors would go along the land. They wouldn't go across the sea. But the Romans knew and the Phoenicians knew how to travel the sea. So the early Indian ships looked like this. They would go like this in these kind of ships across the water. So they were quite an advanced civilization. It wasn't just, you know, backward civilization back then, right? And what they would do is they would come to what is now known as, that we call Funan, which was this whole area, which today is Thailand, Cambodia, and then this was a different country, Vietnam, right? Kampa, it was called. Cochin, China, it was known. Champa, it was called. Right? Lam Up was the Chinese name for it. So, very two different cultures occurred. One, this culture became completely Indianized, and this culture was completely China. Yeah. So this is just like India and China in the north, same here. Okay. India and China, right? Literally. This went Hindu, Vaishnav first, then Shiva culture, then Theravada Buddhism, right? And this went Chan Confucianism, Chan Buddhism, right? Dhyan, Zen, what we call Zen now. This went into all kinds of things. So when we go further, we see that around 800 AD, the Pallavas are now fading, the Cholas are coming into being in India, right? But the Pallava culture is very strong. In fact, the Cholas continued the Pallava culture. It wasn't a new culture. And what they found was that a group came into being in Cambodia area, Thailand area, called the Khmer. They were already local, but they suddenly organized and they became the dominant force there because they took all the Indian mythologies and they became kings like Ramayana and Mahabharata, and they did the whole thing. And they became these kings, great kings. And it was a few hundred years later that this king, right, married, the story goes that Kambu Swayambhuva was a Brahmin from Tamil Nadu, comes and marries a local princess called Naga Meru, Soma. And so this is metaphorical because Soma is Amrit of the gods, and this was the dragon kingdom. It was known as the dragon kingdom, and the great Indian king comes. And so we're just tracing the origins of the Khmer culture in Cambodia and all that. And so this great king comes and he meets, the marriage occurs between India and the local Khmer tribe. And the marriage, which was called Kambu Swayambhu, because of the marriage between Kambu and Mera, it becomes the Khmer. This is the story of the Khmer. So India and the local tribes get married, and we have this marriage of two kingdoms in a way, culture in a way. And you'll see it everywhere. You see that the Pallavas were Vaishnavites, so their headgear, their outfits, everything was copied by the Khmer kings. So wherever you go, you will see Vaishnav culture, Vaishnav in Cambodia. Even though it's a Buddhist state now, Theravada Buddhism. You know the difference between Mahayana and Theravada Buddhism? I'll explain it to you. Mahayana Buddhism says that I can become Bodhisattva right now, me. I don't have to be a monk. I can become the Buddha, right? I can achieve nirvana in the world, living in the world, is the Mahayana school. Theravada school says it's the little raft. You have to become a monk, you give up the world, you row the little monk across the ferry boat and you go to the other side. That is, Theravada means little boat. It means you go with the little boat. And Mahayana means everybody can be Buddha, right? And the great divide occurs because Mahayana became Tibetan Buddhism, becomes Nalanda, becomes China, Zen. All these are Mahayana schools. That means anybody can become Buddha nature. That Buddha mind, right? This was the great thing. So, but we have a story of Vaishnav culture first. So, you can see this is Vaishnav Pallava painting of a court ritual in 4th, 5th century, and this is modern day Khmer kingdoms, right? Still wearing the same gear, the same outfits, the same temple structures, everything. And you see it in the architecture. This is Mahabalipuram near Chennai, and which was an architectural playground. All the kings used to design things there and then take it to other parts of India. You see the same thing in the Khmer, right? Almost identical, right? Except some variations occurred. And you see it with the Pallava style of frescoes and murals. Same thing you see there, right? But it gets that Khmer touch. So it goes oriental, it goes mystical, a lot more snakes and serpents, and I'll explain snakes and serpents, why so much more,
In the carvings, I've been to Angkor, and the sculptures are not like, there's not enough depth.
There's no relief. No. There's no relief, correct. So there was a reason for that, because the stone was not very strong. So you had much stronger stone in the south of India that could sustain deep sculpturing, right, on that stuff. So in fact, today the UN is preserving it because it's falling down and crumbling, because they have to maintain that sandstone. It's limestone and sandstone and things like that. That whole area is full of limestone, so it's not good for big sculptures. They wanted to be like the Indians, but they couldn't match the stones.
That's not the case on the Angkor on the top, right? Which is Buddha faces.
Correct. And you see that, but even they are crumbling, like a lot. The Buddha faces, the Datta faces, the three-headed Datta, right, which is the three-faced ones, right? They're aging not well. They're not aging well. These are only 1,000 years old. But yeah, they survived. There's a lot of stone sculpture there also. And so around, then a remarkable king comes to power in the Khmer, right? Around the 11th century, called Suryavarman II. And he is the Ashoka of the Khmer. He brings it all together. He brings this entire Khmer culture together. And he builds this empire that we call the Khmer Empire now, right? Which was Thailand, Cambodia, all of that region was the great Khmer Empire. In fact, right into Indonesia and all of those countries there also. But the Chinese part of Vietnam and Champa remains Chinese. So you have this very line dividing Hindu and Buddhist, Chan Buddhist culture. Very interesting line, right? And what you get also is that, this is what it's like to be there, It is just incredibly beautiful, I went in my 20s, I haven't been for a long time, but it is so stunning, And in fact, the day we are going on is the vernal equinox. We'll see the sun rise as you're meant to see it. And I'll explain the mysticism of that. It's very powerful, So, the architecture is built on 5 Mount Merus across the whole thing, right? And Meru is a symbolic mountain, which in the Vaishnava, Shaivism, Kundalini culture, Meru represents the mountain of ascent to spiritual enlightenment, right? As you go up the body, as you go up the Mount of Meru, and the 5 Merus represent you're overcoming the 5 senses and you're rising to this amazing enlightenment that occurs, right? So Merus are meant to be that bridge, right, between you, heaven, and earth. Is that bridge. And a Meru has a point at the top, which is called the Bindu, right here, which is our Sahasrara, right here. So we are a Meru, we build Merus, we worship Kailash as a Meru, we see each mountain as a holy mountain. And then who lives there? At the top? Shiva. So we understand that Shiva is that consciousness that we're tapping into. But wherever you live in the heart, you're with Vishnu, right? You're dealing with a Vaishnava culture, right? So the Khmer understood that, and you'll see that in their architecture also. So when you look at this beautiful place, the design is they've created these artificial lakes and ponds, and goes right up to the mountains in the north here, which I'll explain why. And at the south is big water, river and lakes down here, right? So north to south axis and east to west is very important for them. They were very obsessed with east and west, right? And if you look carefully, you'll see that this is exact east, the main architecture, the main structures. And why was this? Because there was an obsession for astronomical and astrological reasons to measure the sunrise at 2 particular days of the year, right? In fact, the entire architecture was designed to look at the sun like this, right? So on 21st March and on 21st September, if you stand along the King's Way, the arcade that goes into the temple, you will see the sun rise along the temple structure and go up. And I've seen this in 5 places in the world. In Mexico, here, right? I go and I chase the sun. So I'm a sun chaser. And Easter Islands, you can see it. Egypt, you can see it. You see this obsession with equinox, because that is the day that the sun is perfectly east, right? That is the day, right? So we want to focus on that day, but there's a reason for that, because they are looking for what star systems are in the sky on that day, so that the sun goes through a cluster of stars, and that's their sign of where they are in their civilization. So we'll come to that. So just look at that. Imagine that a culture that spent today equivalent of billions of dollars just to build a perfect kingdom on earth that reflected heaven. This was their entire... So the only other place we see this in the world is not in India. Madurai a little bit, not too much, right? You see it in Egypt. You see it in Mexico. You see it in this kind of sun-obsessed, star-obsessed culture, right? So let's look at that a little bit. And this is where we get into the mysterious, and it's very interesting. The obsession with the ancients was with the Milky Way, this beautiful Milky Way. So if you can imagine the science that was going through their minds at that time, right? They would imagine that they saw certain things going on in the heavens, right? With their limited tools and architecture and whatever they had. And the way they saw it was that there were 7 moving bodies in the heaven that moved regularly. Sun, moon, Venus, all the planets. And they couldn't see Uranus and all that. So they saw 7. They saw 7 moving bodies that tracked the sky daily, monthly, yearly. It just happened. And there seemed to be this background of immense stars, right, that created the heavens, that seemed to be permanent. But they were so obsessed that they were watching whether they were permanent or not. And they found they were slightly moving. They would wobble. There would be a little move, 1 degree. Every 72 years it will move 1 degree. 1 degree. Can you imagine 72 years of measurement they were doing to see how many has it moved? And they built all their architecture to map that, to see whether it would move a little bit, whether it would go a little bit more. And we did that in India as well. They were obsessed with star signs and things like that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, but to an observer who doesn't know that the Earth is...
I'll explain that. It's called precession. I mean, we know the science now, but imagine what they were thinking.
Exactly. So for them, the stars would be moving.
So the stars were look, everybody was looking for something permanent in the universe, right? We still are. We want that one single source, that one point where it all happened. And the problem occurs is that everything seems temporary. Born, I live, I die. A planet born, lives, dies. Nature comes and goes. The moon lives and dies. The sun lives and dies, goes under the earth. It's like continuous cycles of nature going on from me to the macro. And human beings have been looking for that permanent one North Star that will give them hope that there is something permanent in the world that I'm going towards, right? And even then they failed because they saw it moving. And so then it became, so what they decided that was, we see it through, and I'll explain this. In Angkor Wat, wherever you go in Angkor Wat, you will see this architecture, this relief. It's called the Samudra Manthan. Right? You've all heard of Samudra Manthan? Samudra Manthan is the great Asuras and Devas, in order to save the Amrit for the world, to get the Amrit for the world, decide for the first time, darkness and light work together to churn the ocean of milk so that this Amrit will rise, right? And part of the Amrit rising has to create poison first, and then the Amrit will come. And the Naga, the serpent, is the snake that you pull, and you're pulling and pushing, and you see this all the time with Vishnu dancing there in the middle. And then Shiva comes and drinks the poison and saves mankind and gives them Amrit through Ganga, right? This is the mythology of the Amrit, right? It's a beautiful mythology, right? What most people don't realize that it is the mythology about the Milky Way, right? It is the Milky Way, right? And we have been obsessed with the Milky Way, the number of planets in it, stars in it, how it is churning, And the belief was that from the middle of the Milky Way, Ganga would come into Shiva's locks and into the earth. Right? This was a beautiful idea. And wherever you go in Angkor Wat, you're going to see this over and over again. So this was a group that were focused on the sun, and they also were focused on the stars. They were looking, so there was an astronomical cult that existed for them, right? And we only have that in a few places in India, not everywhere. So the belief was that, and this occurs throughout the ancient world, was that what is out there as above is also in here, so below, as below, right? We've talked about this idea that I am a microcosm of everything that's going on out there, right? This is the fundamental thesis upon which Indian mysticism, Egyptian mysticism, Merkaba, Kabbalah, all are built upon. This fundamental thesis is that I am a perfect replica of the entire universal forces out there, right? So if I can know my body and my architecture and my city and my cosmos, I am in harmony with that universal idea. So everything was designed to bring harmony between you and the cosmos and you and your internal biology. right? So whether you call it Kundalini or whether you call it, Milky Way galaxy, you're trying to create alignment, harmony, right? So these people went to the full extent of that harmony, right? They believed they were going to create a kingdom forever. Perfect harmony between heaven and earth. Can you imagine? What a great idea. You can just imagine that some secret astronomers and Brahmins were sitting there with them and saying, Maharaja, you need to build this city like this. Because if I build it for you like this, you will be kingdom of heaven on earth and you'll be the king forever. Talia. You can just see it. And how much do you want? Here's crores of rupees, go build it. And show me a golden jacket also, to go with it. Right? So this is Jyotishis and all have been doing this since the beginning of time. But you can see how they convinced him, And it must have been a society of astronomers that was global because they knew about this stuff all over the world, right? I'll just show you. So this is an interesting diagram. This shows you that they believe that the earth energy is reflected around the earth as in the body. So there was a strong belief in this. And we see this, and there's an ancient belief called ley lines that we see throughout the world, right? And we are seeing it more and more now. Researchers like Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval have been traveling around the world looking at correlationships to longitude, latitude, and sacred places, right? So we find that there is a curve and a geometry that seems to unite many of the sacred places that are considered ancient or astronomical. So there seems to be some knowledge, right, that was more global than we give it credit for, right? And it's spread over thousands of years also. So you can.
The others you had Machu Picchu here.
I'll show you. So Teotihuacan in Mexico, Easter Islands, pyramids of Giza, right? And they were so obsessed that this is staring out at equinox, sun. They're all staring. That means look, right? And when they dug down, they found full bodies of them. So these were not sitting on the sand. They were actually standing on the ground and then they were buried later, right? So they were full standing men with hats on, looking, So Graham Hancock and all are trying to figure out the mysteries. But they found that of these 3-4 major sites are astronomically aligned. Pyramids, India. India also has them. Like we have ley lines going through Kailash, Mansarovar. We have ley lines going through Arunachala. So all the great Jyotirlingas tend to be in places where these ley lines cross, right?
And there's a 1 degree of separation between them for Jyotirlingas.
That was in my research, was that if you draw a line from Kailash Mansarovar straight down in longitude, right? Within 1 degree are all the most sacred sites of Indian Shiva worship.
So Jyotirlinga is placed exactly 1 degree off.
No, it's no more than that. If you look at the Jyotirlingas, they're not that. It's not that much. No, only Kedarnath and 1 or 2 others down south are on that alignment. The ones mostly are in Gujarat and Maharashtra, which is about 7-8 degrees off, and this side is about 2 degrees off. We're looking at the astronomy and astrology of Angkor Wat and what it meant, right? And how it matches to ancient sites around the world. And it belongs to a sacred culture of astronomy that correlated heaven on earth and an obsession with trying to bring heaven to earth, right? So forget all that for a second. Just imagine that they built this entire city in about 35 years. So this is not Pyramid of Giza that took 100 years or something, or Taj Mahal or whatever. This is an entire city, the largest temple structure in the world, 35 years, right? That means it was a national effort. People came from all over, craftsmen from Pallava dynasty, craftsmen from Cholas, architects, astronomers, astrologers were there for like 35 years. Can you imagine? They brought artisans from India, they brought artisans from all over the world to come and work there. It must have been an amazing effort. We think, it just happened. No, this is serious planning, right? And the obsession is serious. So, what I want to show you is that we talked about the Milky Way, right? 2 forms occur in Angkor Wat a lot. One is the Naga, right? The serpent, the 7-hooded serpent, right? That comes, which is both Kundalini, right? Which is the opening up of the serpent over your head, and it is also astrological, right? And I'll explain that to you. And you will see that the astronomical also represents the churning of the Milky Way. The Samudra Manthan is going on here. So wherever you go, every bridge in Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom has this. It means these people were obsessed with it. This is not some accidental, chalo ek Samudra Manthan laga dete yahan pe. No, it didn't happen like that. This is obsession, right? That means they were mapping stars in Earth. Entire system was going to map. So when you look at it, Graham Hancock and others have drawn a map now that like Egypt is designed to pyramids of Giza, to the star of Orion, Orion's belt. Same thing, we are aligned exactly to Dracos, right? The star system called Dracos. And the alignment of the architecture of Angkor Thom, all the way the journey that the kings would take, was reflecting exactly of the Draco system, right? And the reason being, Draco is called the dragon, right? And the dragon is the serpent. And so the Khmer people saw themselves as the serpent kingdom. They brought the serpent down to earth, So beautiful, no? This whole thing. So when you go to a place like this and you see these understanding of these mythologies, it makes so much new sense and ideas to you. And that's why we want to do it that way.
Another thought was crossed my mind looking at this West and Eastern. Is the White House also with the West Wing and the East Wing?
We are going to do a sacred tour of Masonic sites of the world. I'll do that soon. If I take you to Masonic sites, you will be blown away how man-made power is created. How to induce power. So there was a belief, and there is some validity to it, that if you aligned yourself perfectly to these star systems and internal, you will get new power. You create power. And that kingdom did last for 600 years. So all said and done, they dominated Khmer. The Mayans did it in Mexico. The Aztecs did it. The people have done it, right? So there was this, and it also is psychological, that if you believe that this is your power, you will be powerful, If you believe your Kundalini is waking up, it will wake up, It will wake up for you. Because it is waiting for you to say hello, and then it comes,
Active faith. Active faith.
It's halfway. It's 50% faith, 50% grace. So the cosmos comes down to meet you when you reach up to it, right?
This is very important.
This is the important. So when you build the building, grace will come. Hello, you want power? Theek hai beta, have some power. And it's a very funny, it's a funny power.
The will has to come from the faith. Effort of the will has to be there.
But can you imagine what faith it takes to spend billions of dollars like this? Can you imagine going to Modi ji or Trump and saying, I can build you a city, right? That'll give you 600 years of power. But I won't be next election. What about next election? Their vision had to be 500 years, hundreds of years, and that's why there were dictatorships and kings and things like that.
How about this sustaining for so long? The battle being passed on.
Mythology, the stories keep you.
Okay.
The way you may sustain a mythology, like Egypt did for 2,000 years, is mythology. Is that you believe that the pharaohs are connected and you are a part of the system and you go. It's storytelling. We are a storytelling species, whereas, Trump is telling new stories now. All right, let me continue because this is an exciting adventure. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that as above, so below also relates to the body, right? Now, in the Kundalini idea, the Vishnu culture is the heart, right? Brahma is the yoni, Vishnu is the heart, and Shiva is the third eye and the sits here, right? So if you were to do an architecture, you would have Brahma at the bottom, the land of the Nagas and snakes and water. You'd have Vishnu at the heart, which is the power of man's continuity in the world. And you'd have the sacred Buddha, Shiva at the third eye. Now, this is a map of, I'm sorry, I love these kinds of things, right? This is a map of Angkor Wat, which shows the river base where they started. They actually built false rivers to connect it, okay? The kings connected the south, so the ships would come here from other countries and other places, and they would come up here. This is a lake that connects to the main river, the big river, and it takes you up. And this is Angkor Wat. Siem Reap is the commercial center, which is at the Manipura area. You'll see in a second. In fact, let me just show you my picture. Right. So if we look at it, The base, we'll be going there, is full of fish, snakes and crocodiles down here, the land of the Nagas. You come up here, this is the commercial center, the Manipura. You come to the heart where the capital lived, where the kings lived, where the temples are, and that is directly connected to the heart, right? And then you go up there, so according to this, whatever is up here should represent Shiva, right? Predict that? And we'll be right. It is the only Shiva temple in the entire kingdom, right? Only Shiva temple is about 20 kilometers north. We're going to go there, and it's right there, and it looks amazing. Look at that. You know, this is right out of some fantasy, and it's in the middle of a jungle, right? And that means that the most sacred place to all the Angkor people was way up there in the jungle, connecting you to your third eye and out into the cosmos, right? And then right above that is what? Mountains. Meru. You're again going to the real mountains, right? Right there is the mountains. So it's a fascinating story. So my conclusion for Angkor Wat is that it was a culture that was obsessed with the sun, astronomy, power, astrology, and it lasted for hundreds of years. And it was a Hindu culture. It then became a Theravada culture, which is Buddhism of the monks. So today, when you go to Cambodia, it's all monk run. There's no, the religion is people come and give devotion to the monks, who then talk to the Buddha, or whatever you want to do. And they still have names, their kingdoms, their dances, their culture, their food is Indianized, right? And it's worth seeing. If you get a chance, if you don't come with us, it doesn't matter, go see it, you know, just to see what can happen when an Indian idea or a mythology gets blown up into a super story, you know? You can imagine, right? So now I'm going to cross the border. And oh, by the way, this is the water area down south where the Nagas live and the crocodiles live. So Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura is the commercial capital, Anahata the heart, throat, and then straight up here, Shiva, you know, third eye, and then you're off to the higher planes. So it's a very fascinating cosmology and mythology there that we'll go and check around and look at, all right? Now Vietnam, completely opposite, right?
Can I ask?
Yeah, please.
You talked about Shiva. The chances of third eye opening, awakening is a lot better there because of the energy out there.
Just like if you go to Arunachala.
The grace of Almighty, one is more there to incline to get the grace than over here.
So the geological places also exist in India. The Jyotirlingas are them, the Shakti Peeths are them, right? These are ancient stone and rock and power formations that have comets or meteorites have come with huge power. Where, what is it? Imagine you're going to a geological place where the earth energies are at their peak. You will trip. You will go on a trip. It'll happen. You will trip out, right? Now when you trip, if you are meditating on that trip, right, something profound will happen to you, right? A Kundalini awakening, whatever you want to call it. If you go there with a cynical attitude, you will just come away going, holy crap, what was that, right? Or if you don't know what it was, right? But it is transformative just by being there. So I've explored these power places. When you go to Stonehenge, when you go to Egypt, search in the King's Chamber, when you go into different places in India, right? Mansarovar, Arunachala, right? Any of the Jyotirlingas you go to, right? Some of the Shakti Peeths, oh my God, you know, Tara Peeth, you go down to Dakshineshwar, you know, any of the Peeths, right? The energy that's there will send you spinning. Also water sources like Narmada source, the Gangotri, those places, you will just go spiraling. You won't even know what's going on, right? So imagine now you know how to meditate, you know how to be still and lift your Kundalini up, and you go to a place like that. What will happen? It'll be like a 40,000 volt will come on you, right? So you go there to initiate yourself further and further and further, which is more powerful than any drug you can take or any Shaktipat you can get from a teacher. These places are, that's why people used to go on pilgrimages in the old days, because they'd go to these energy places to get rid of their basic boring life and say there's more, you know. So even forget God, the super potential of your own mind in those places is what is really the divine. What I can become. Right? So why do we go to these places? To see what we can become. Right? So now next time you go, it'll be a different trip. Right?
This time it was with Land of Seven Rivers, Sanjeev Sanya's book on how
it guided you.
How Indian was. And I sat on Angkor steps and I read it and I cried.
Very cool.
It was beautiful.
So now you started the company. So I think that what you have to understand is that psychic transformation, right, which is what this is, right, is about you, not about the place. If you have no desire for those things, then you go to that place, it'll be nice, pretty. What a beautiful temple.
Like the people who are going to have 2 days workshop tomorrow and day after, they would have more, result oriented over there while they have that energy. If you know that this workshop over there,
those will be open.
Transformation would happen a lot better.
Yeah.
This is what you are telling, like
Absolutely.
because of the energy level.
But we'll meditate there also, so you can come. We'll do it.
The transformation would happen faster earlier.
Transformation happens faster if you are willing to practice, right? So you cannot take it just from a teacher, right? A teacher can give you a Shaktipat, I can give you a mantra, I can give you a Shaktipat, there are teachers who will give you Shaktipat. You come away, 2-3 days you're intoxicated, right? Then when you come back to the realities of life, unless you are practicing and maintaining that energy level at a higher level, it'll deplete, right? It goes down. So you want to pick it up again. But once you get to a certain point, like after practice, it comes here and then it stops. It'll stay up only, right? And that's where you want to get to, the heart. That's why these people built all these things, so they could sit in that. And apparently the Khmer were not ruthless, they were very kind. There was a loving kingdom, people loved their kings. It wasn't like torture, like the Mayans did and kill everybody and sacrifice their enemies. No. Very pious. And that's why they brought Theravada Buddhism, because they wanted that Buddhist peace, Shanti. And it was heart-based, so it had to be like that.
Harmonious.
So when right now, when I went there,
they're very loving
they
people.
didn't want to come back.
They're so nice. Okay, let me just finish Vietnam, because otherwise we'll be here for a while. So, Vietnam, I want to take you on a different journey, okay? Vietnam comes from China, right? It is a China. It was a colony of China. It was the lower China. It was called, South China, really. It was known as that. And the reason being is that, you'll see that if you go there, you will see immense Buddhist art and immense Confucian and Taoist culture, right? So when we go to China, just look at this divide, right? This is influenced by India, everything here, because India is right there, right? This is southern China. So Chinese culture came in from 5th century BC, even earlier. It has been Chinese, right? And Confucianism was at its peak in the 5th century, so that came in early. Buddhism came in 3rd, 2nd century, came in early. Now Buddhism that went to China was different from Buddhism that we practice in Sri Lanka, Theravada and Cambodia, very different, right? It was a Mahayana Buddhism, right? So we have 3 cultures in China, I'll just explain. One is Confucianism, right? Buddhism and Taoism, right? Lao Tzu, Confucius and the Buddha, right? This is the medicine Buddha, right? Now, the way it worked was that China had codes of conduct, ancestor worship, but no God. It was not a God divinity culture. It was never a God culture. But they believed in ancestors, in merit, in doing good, right? And Confucianism was built on that the moral principles by which you live, right? They create the world that you want to have, the Confucian culture, right? Buddhism came into China, right, from India, right, 3rd century onwards through Silk Route trade and through Nepal that way, and it came in through translations of scriptures. Then Chinese scholars came to Nalanda, took back scriptures, and then a great teacher called Bodhidharma, right, took what we call Dhyan Buddhism to China, and it became Chan Buddhism, And Chan Buddhism then later became Zen, later became all these schools of Buddhism that came out of it. He was from Tamil Nadu also, so nice Tamil Nadu connection to everything. And he was a Tamil thing, and he is also the father of Kung Fu, he's also the father of the Shaolin temple. He is the great Indian proselytizer who went and brought Buddhism in the 3rd century AD to China, right? And from that, the great Chan school of Buddhism started, which was called the 5 Mountain School. We have Shaolin and 4 other mountains, the great mountains of China, and it affected everything on Chinese culture, right? But Confucianism and Buddhism, and before Confucianism was Taoism, was nature pantheistic worship, like our Shakti and Tantra, right? Which is that everything is energy. I am an energy being, I do energy work, I can heal with this energy, I can have to flow with this energy, this Shakti, this prana, this ki, they call it ki, right? Chi, right? This chi culture. So Qigong, these things all come from Tai Chi, Kung Fu, all come out of the Taoist culture. But the 3 melded in China. So a single household could have Taoist practices, Confucian values, and also Buddha. Right? In fact, they had pictures of all 3 all the time in every house. It was just in case, because Chinese believe in luck. That, what if bad luck comes? Let's do all 3. Like we do all the Devis and Bhagwans will be in our house. We'll do the same thing. Sabko Ganesh ko bhi karo, Lakshmi ko bhi karo, ye bhi karo, sabko. Same thing, the Chinese also, but they did not believe in deity. Meaning, no supreme Brahman, no Shiva, no Brahma, no Vishnu, no cosmology, no tantra, but man can control the cosmic energy, bring it in. He can then thrive in the world and become strong and become focused. He can then do good in the world, meritocracy. You have to do good, try not to do bad, Confucianism. And you must walk the Mahayana path, that at every moment you should strive to become Buddha. That means compassion, kindness, centered, meditation. So these 3 cultures, boom, fused in the Chinese culture. So very different values from what was going on in Cambodia. Cambodia was intricate cosmology, right? That the body, the goddesses, the stories all make you stronger. In fact, our Hindu goddess system and god system is the most elaborate cosmology in the world, right? Most elaborate. The Chinese one is much simpler. Do good, meditate. Simple.
What dictates China to be moral and ethical?
Diet, climate, it's colder, it's further north, right? It's a colder culture, right? You will see all colder cultures are very practical, less God, right? All colder cultures, right? They go to Siberia, there's no God. There's just shamanism and meat, right? And things like that, right?
What binds them with goodness without Almighty, believing in Almighty? What binds them with goodness?
Almighty is a concept, right? Even in Tantra, we don't follow an Almighty, right? The Hindu idea or any idea is that there is this source of where I come from, where everything comes from, right? I am the same as that source, but I've covered with clouds and I can't see, right? So if I am able to unfold, I will see my true self in the face of God, right? Now that is the explanation of all religion, right? Whether it's Judaism or Christianity, but what happens is that the Judeo-Christian tradition went with a different model, that God is outside of us, right? So we have to surrender to that power, and then it will forgive us and welcome us back into the light, right? Indian culture said, no, you are God, you just don't remember or know it. So wake up. How do you wake up? Yoga, dhyan, puja, bhakti. All these traditions wake you up to your divine nature, right? Correct? So when you do that, everything is a practice to go to that divinity. Whether you do yoga, whether you do tantra, whether you do, gurumukhi, whether you do any tradition, right? You are going to follow. What is Sikhism? Sikhism is a bhakti tradition, right? Shabad. That means you're going to hear the sound of God, right? It's going to come to you as sound, right? Then light will come, and then Vaheguru, right? That is the whole principle. Forget all the other stuff. It's all the PhD program. Everything else is that dita fatak, straight to that, right? Same thing with all of these cultures. But the Chinese went the other way. They said human beings have to survive in the world and be good and try and stay moral and just, and because Chinese, they beat people regularly. It's a very punishment culture, not divine punishment, man-made punishment, moral codes. That means, and you will find the culture is such that they're not lazy. They will get up and do exercise in the morning. They'll all do it. Everybody, everybody, literally everybody, even the old people, they'll go out and do their tai chi and whatever they're doing. So it's a culture of action, doing, luck, and they believe in luck.
What is the governing factor then?
The governing factor there is that how did I live my life, right? So there's no tomorrow, right? There's no hereafter, right? There's no heaven to go to. Yes, when I die, I'll join the ancestors and I'll be able to hang around for a while and then maybe go further and further into the Taoist woods and nature of source, right? That's too much. This world, this life, did I make money? Did I do good? Did I help my family? Did I look after everybody? Was I good? These are the driving principles of the Chinese culture. Make sense? Which is very different from ours, because ours is a mukti culture. Ours is a moksha culture. Yeah, and ours is a moksha culture, which says that, which is liberation. That means this actually it's been misinterpreted, because today it's interpreted as liberation from the attachments to the world. That's not what it really means. What it means is connection to source, right? And you can call it divine, you can call it Atma, Paramatma, Bhuvaneshwari, whatever you want to call it, irrelevant. But you're connecting to that which is really you, right? But what has happened, that is also you. So I'm supposed to be good to you. I'm supposed to be nice. I'm supposed to feed you and look after you. We don't do that.
Consciousness at the purest form.
So if we really went to the core of Indian philosophy, we would treat each other as God. But we don't, right? In China, they said, no, forget the divinity. You treat each other well because there is punishment if you don't, and it is good to do it, and you'll get merit. Right? In this life, you'll get merit, and then you go to the ancestors and thank them, and Buddha will bless you, and you'll be all right. So it's a very much more productive culture.
Buddha is almighty, kind of.
No, they don't have an almighty idea.
Buddha is not almighty.
For them.
Buddha is the best example of what I can be.
Okay, the goodness.
The highest potential in me is Buddha. Buddha mind. Which means I see everybody as one. To see everything as one.
Medicinal Buddha?
Medicinal Buddha is a particular school of Tantric Buddhism from Tibet and all, which is a particular set of mantras and tools to bring healing into the body and mind. Yeah, it's a technique. It's like Tantra. It's a Tara Tantra. We have Tara, we have things like that. So, I'm a student of Sri Vidya, so I know this. So here you see in Vietnam, ancestor worship. They put incense, so they pray to their ancestors saying, please guide us, look after us, protect us, look after us, right? Big time. They also practice Tai Chi and Qigong everywhere. You see them, people doing it in the parks and everywhere, right? Just like China, ancestor worship. And you see the monks also everywhere. So it's an interesting culture of, most...
Praying to the ancestors is spirituality for them. Yes. Correct?
Yes. Which is that, forgive me. It is like going to Jesus and asking for forgiveness, or going to Ganesh and asking for plenty, or whatever you're going to do. It is their pantheistic way of doing it.
So they feel they are connected to their ancestors.
See, in India, our culture is such that Hinduism is the most inclusive of all religions. Because anybody can be a Hindu. You can worship a stone and you're a Hindu, right? And you put divine power into it, you look at it and you do learn the thing, you can do it. The Chinese are a little different because they organized it into moral codes of living by. In fact, in India, that's why Buddhism ruled for 600, 700 years, because Ashoka's ideas was very popular, that you forget what your local religion is, keep it, but go at the higher dharma level of moral codes, So China went all out with the moral codes. They said that's the most important thing, and that's how they work. But there's crime, there's corruption, there's all that in China also. It's no different. It's not a religious people. But now Christianity is the fastest growing religion in China. China. Strange. And we'll have to watch that one. Okay, so just very quickly, ancestor worship is fantastic, elaborate temples they have, right? Confucian temples, where you can go and give thanks to the ancestors and go and do different things, right? Huge, across Vietnam, across China. So when you see an elaborate temple, it's usually not a Buddhist pagoda. It is a Confucian ancestor worshipping. You light incense, you thank, but you'll still find a Buddha there. The Buddha will be there, and Lao Tzu will also be there. But Taoism will also be there, all there. And next door will be the Qigong center and the Kung Fu and all there. Acupressure, everything will be there. So it's all one shopping mall of spirituality for you, Just like here, no different when you go to the Brahmins in the south, same thing, right?
So then Tao is the source.
No, Tao is the way.
Tao is the way.
A way, a path, an energy flow, a way. Tao means way. Wu way means
Tao is not the source.
Tao is everything. Namaha, like we say, right? What do we say? We say Namaha, right? Not me, everything.
Correct.
Namaha, same principle. Everything is Tao. I have to flow with Tao. Bas.
Universal power.
And Ha is the sound of Shiva. So everything is Shiva in our culture, right? So that's. I could spend hours on this, right? And we're going to see this place also, which is called the Temple of the 1,000 Buddhas. That means over like 1600 years they've been piling Buddhas there. Yeah. Very much like the Birlas and all have been doing here. But we have one place where they put all the Buddhas there, right? And so the bigger the Buddha, obviously the richer the family that brought it, and things like that. But it's an amazing place. And, I've not been there for a long time. I want to go. I'm looking forward to going. And it is really, I hate to say this because there are beautiful places to meditate for this, but it is like a supermarket of spirituality. You go, but it is beautiful. It is worth seeing just for the magic of how much meditation became a religion. Buddhism, what is Buddhism? Meditation. Simple. Meditate and all troubles will go away, all pain will go away, all suffering will go away. Right? Pure. And then when you meditate on the heart, you become a good person. Beautiful places. The beauty was a very strong part of Taoist culture, of Zen Chan culture, which is that if I see a flower bloom, I see Buddha. I see the nature of the universe, So they are obsessed with beauty in parks, in buildings, in centers, right? You'll find the streets very clean in China, in Vietnam, because people are obsessed with, the toilets will be filthy, but the streets will be clean, People try and keep beauty. Even in the apartment buildings you will see people put little flower, little thing, there's a kind of culture which the Japanese have even more further, right, Zen culture, which comes that I have to be reminded all the time of my Buddha nature, that I am peaceful, I am beautiful, I am compassionate, I am kind, right? So our Angkor Wat culture was to come and see the majesty of the kingdom, right? I don't know how the ordinary people lived. I think they all lived in shacks, right? As you've seen, it's terrible how they live there. It's just like India, bastis and all. But you go to Vietnam and you go to China or Hong Kong, even the most basti will be, they try and keep it clean. They try and look after it. There's a kind of obsession with order on earth, order in heaven, that order,
Energy flow, chi, everything,
Chi.
No clutter in your environment around you.
It is bad chi. And they have good chi and bad chi. They have good karma, bad karma. They always talk in terms of good and bad. This is good karma. This is good chi. Do it. Right? But they are meat eaters. They're not all vegetarians, right? So it's not about vegetarianism that makes for a better person. So there's no logic to that argument. It is a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. And it's evolved over 2,000-3,000 years, So their Buddhism is very different from our Buddhism in a lot of ways. But the ideals are the same. And then the culture of Cambodia, of Vietnam, is very much about traditional color and richness. You see these puppets, you see all these things, right? And then the last place we're going on our journey this is one of the most beautiful places in the world, right? This is called Halong Bay, which is, they call it the dragon descended there and just sat. Right, so it's all these little mountains. I've never been. I'm looking forward to this one. And here they have like 1,500 square kilometers of this, right? And you sail through it, and we're going on this boat, and we're going to sail all the way through it, right, for a 24-hour ride, just to taste it. I know. I wish I could do a whole week there. And we'll practice Qigong on the boat. But it is the most spectacular. And in March, it is like, it's all limestone mountains, so they're filled with nature, and it's beautiful. So it's like one of those Chinese paintings you see, of the mountains in the mist, that kind of thing. So you end with this sublime. So the Chinese culture for me is very much about the sublime, How can I sublimate my life, right? While the Indian culture for me is very much of how can I liberate my soul to its biggest soul, right? So we are obsessed with two different values, right? And my whole life I've lived in both values, because I'm a martial arts. I have fought half my life, right? Aikido, Kung Fu, I've done it all, right? I do Qigong every day. So I know what energy is like when you do the martial arts. But then you combine it with the Kundalini and So this is what I wanted to share with you. I hope that helps. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.